Hello, so I'm gonna just make a video talking to the camera. I've just wrote a very long comment to someone on one of my videos. It was on the Nietzschean video of God is Dead. So yeah, I wrote quite a long comment to like a reply about topic, and I thought, well, if I'm willing to talk about it through typing, I might as well just make a video about it. So that's what I'm gonna do. It's basically whether I believe in God or not, my thoughts on religion, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna try and articulate this as best as I possibly can, with the language I have. I don't know how good that will be, but yeah. So religion, God. Do I believe in God? I think I do believe in God. So I'm gonna just explain my reasons why. Like, don't jump to any conclusions and things like that. I mean, you can if you want. I don't mind. But yeah. So I've studied this topic a lot at college, religion and God, and especially Christianity, because yeah, it's just ethnocentric, I guess, which is okay. Um, and I don't know, I just feel like God exists. Like, we look at his attributes. Like, what could he be? Like, all knowing, all loving, all powerful. And I understand the like Freudian and the Dawkins criticisms about religion being, well, Freud said it's a universal obsessional neuroses. So obviously that was negative. He basically thought it was like a widespread mental illness, which people just turn to for comfort. And that's a bit like what Karl Marx said. It supports capitalism. People basically, they turn to religion as a form of like an escape almost, or like a comfort blanket, which Karl Marx believed stopped them from acting out, and revolting against the bourgeoisie. And I guess he's got some grounds to believe this because around the time of the French Revolution, where I can't remember when it started, I think it was like 17 something. When that started, basically, what the working class did and what the people of the villages did, because I think it was feudalism at the time, so it was rather than having like a capitalist society, it was like a society with a king, and then I don't know if it was feudalism. I'm going to assume it was, and yeah, and then there was like obviously the bourgeoisie and the rich people basically, with the big mansions with the names on, and then there was the poorer people. And basically, the poor people realised that perhaps there wasn't a god. It's like secularization started to take place. So they went around the cities, pulling down all of the different items which symbolised wealth, and so like the statues of the kings and the different plaques on the bourgeoisie's houses and hotels and all this stuff. And they also removed all the religious symbolry as well, or symbols. I don't know, symbolry is a word. All of the religious symbols from the town, and so they'd literally carve it out or cover it up. But most of the time they just like scratched it off of the wall or the woodwork or anything like that. And it's crazy because now there's like loads of empty spaces where all the architecture used to be filled with religious symbols. So yeah, it's quite an interesting thing that happened, and this was a result of secularization. And the reason they turned against the king was, perhaps, I think it was because the divine right of kings was obviously, it was a religious idea. So king, then obviously the realization that perhaps God doesn't exist, or perhaps religion doesn't hold much importance within society, led these people almost to reject this idea of the divine right of kings. So then the king didn't have any power anymore. So I can't remember what his name was, but the king at the time in France, when this basically had started, he tried to flee the country, but he got stopped at the border, and then he got brought back to his house, where he was in a lot of danger because a lot of people wanted to hurt him. at the time because they were angry because obviously the king had taken advantage. He had all the money and they got paid very little, and it was very much it was pre-Marxism, so it already started to happen, and I guess Marx must have been sort of influenced by this. And I did a little bit of research into Marx, and he moved from he was in France at one point in his life, and France was basically the place where all this was happening. So I'm thinking maybe he was influenced by this in some way in writing his the Communist Manifesto. And obviously it wasn't just Marx, it was also the guy who no one ever remembers. I've lost it, it's gone. You'll probably know that one, but yeah. Anyway, so Marx was probably influenced by this, and he was also influenced by Auguste Comte. I think I made a video about him the other day, and I probably mentioned that actually. So yeah, that'll be there. It's it. I guess we can look at how the French Revolution has affected France today, because France now is a completely secular country. You're not allowed to practice religion in public. It's illegal to wear any religious symbols like crosses or hijabs if you're a Muslim. You have to basically dress neutrally. Obviously there's issues with this, but there's probably plus sides too. We can argue that perhaps is it right to reject religion completely? Is it right to have state intervention in order to try and impose secularization onto a society? And perhaps this is the case. Perhaps that's okay, but we don't know that. It sounds a little bit authoritarian to me. Like if you just want to wear a little cross, which could be classed as a piece of jewelry, like I don't know. And also with the hijabs, what if you're not a Muslim? What if you're just wearing a headscarf as like a fashion statement? Would they only stop Muslim women from wearing it, or would they stop atheists or agnostics from wearing it because it's associated with a religious symbol? So yeah, I think there's grey areas there, and I'm not quite sure what I think about it. I'd say Britain is a lot more liberal, and I want to say that's a good thing, but there's obviously pluses and minuses to it. There's pluses and minuses to everything, I guess. But yeah, I think I'd rather be in a country whereby it's alright for people to practice whatever religion they want and practice their autonomy than to be in a country which wouldn't allow people to do that. I feel like the French are trying to promote social cohesion almost. So it's like if everyone's just dressed normally and they're not practicing the religions, and then that's less social segregation almost. It removes some of the ways that people are able to distinguish themselves and make themselves stand outside of other groups. So it's like it's trying to prevent social or cultural dissolution. Dissolution. I think dissolution fits. Probably, I don't know if that's the right word. It's trying to prevent the dilution of culture, which Britain perhaps doesn't do. It's like, what is British culture? And that's probably going to become a more and more harder question to answer as the time goes by, because different cultures will be coming into Britain, and obviously there'll be less British people, or there'll be equal amounts of other cultures. So it's like they're going to bring children into the world, and that's going to cause even more multiculturalism, and eventually perhaps everyone in Britain will just adopt a new culture. I mean, that's a possibility. It might be a little bit optimistic, but yeah, all the cultures within Britain are going to remain segregated, because I do notice that different cultures tend to just stay to themselves. Not that that's a bad thing, but yeah, it's just an observation. Anyway, theoretically, if that's the case, then society will eventually, it will just keep fragmenting, won't it? And everyone will just stay in their own little culture groups. And yeah, Britain won't be, I guess, Britain anymore. And I can see why that annoys some people, but I can also see how that could be a good thing. in some ways, and because obviously, well, I'm just speculating. Something perhaps, if society becomes fragmented, perhaps that's not a good thing. Society's already become slightly fragmented, and is this a bad thing? Probably. I don't know. I'm just associating the fragmentation of society with a negative thing. I don't know if that's right, I don't know if that's wrong. I guess I don't know a lot, to be honest. Does anyone really know anything? I'm like 18 years old, and I've barely been on the planet at all. Is it that we ever really get to know more things, or is it just that we become more set in our beliefs and more or less indecisive? Because I say I'm pretty indecisive sometimes right now, but I feel decisive as well. I just feel uncertain. I think that's a better word than indecisive. It's not that I'm trying to choose between beliefs. It's like that I'm just uncertain on the beliefs that I do hold, because there's always the chance that I'm wrong, and obviously I don't want to enforce something that could be wrong, because that seems like a bad thing, and it's assuming that bad things exist, which I'm going to do, and I'm pretty sure bad things exist, and I'm pretty sure good things exist. But then again, do they just exist within the human experience, or do they exist without of that, and we almost just, outside of the human experience, and we just sort of tap into it? Like, there's actually something going on in the external world, and we're interacting with that, yes, so it is partially as if we weren't also there to experience the bad thing, then would it really be a bad thing, or would it just be a thing? Like, the fact that something's bad or good is perhaps because that's the way a human being interacts with that thing. Like, to a dog, something might not be so bad. And even within our species, some things are bad to others. Some things are bad to some people and good to others. It's like food, for example. We don't all experience food in the same way. It's like, I might like mushrooms, my sister might not. I'm not talking about magic mushrooms. But yeah, I might like going to the beach. Some people might like walking in the woods. And that's having different perspectives on the same things within our own species. So imagine how much that differs between species, and that's probably quite a lot. And what can we infer from this? We can infer that we're never exactly experiencing the objective world as it is, because we're only experiencing our perspective of the objective world and the human perspective of the objective world. I don't think the human perspective of the objective world really gives much away. I don't think that provides us with much information whatsoever, because there's so much diversity within humanity. So when I say human, it doesn't necessarily bring one thing to mind. There's black people, white people, Asian people, smart people, I guess the dumb people, but people with lower IQs, disabled people, I don't know, geniuses, just all these different kinds of people. And even within those subcategories of humanity, there's more subcategories, and we just keep on, I guess, breaking that down until eventually we get to the individual, and we realise, okay, well, the individual is at the bottom of all this, or is at the core of all this. So that you can segregate people into groups, yes, but what are those groups made out of? The individual. And then what can you separate the individual into? Can you keep separating it from there? Does it separate like our psyche? Because I don't feel like I'm this one person. I don't feel like I'm the same person all the time. I feel like I change. So you can separate the individual into more categories, because when you say individual, when you say person, and when you say Steph, it's not just this simple being. It's like a complex, something extremely complex going on with consciousness and all that, and different emotions and different mindsets and different personalities and different actions, and it just keeps on separating yourself, or breaking things down into tiny pieces. And those tiny pieces are what make you up. And you've got to you can't look at yourself as a whole, I guess. You've got to look at all the pieces that make you up. all the parts of your psyche. And are those pieces good or are those pieces bad? And do we get to choose how we want to develop those pieces? And do we have the power to change them? And I want to say yes, we do have the power to change them. And when we change them enough, then eventually it changes our whole personality. It's like we become a different person almost, and we probably have the ability to slip back into those different habits or different mindsets or different emotions, because those pieces are still there, they're still prevalent in our being. Perhaps we just bring more pieces in. We can never truly get rid of the old pieces. We could perhaps stop acting them out, but can we really ever erase something that's happened to us in our lives? I feel like it's going to stay there in our brains, and we really don't understand our brains. And obviously there's neuroscientists who are doing what they can to try and figure this thing out, but it's extremely complex. It's the brain trying to understand itself. I don't know what consciousness is. I just know it's really complicated. And I would like to know for definite, but I feel like there is no definitive answer in this case. But then we've got to break it down. We've got to look at all the little components of the brain, and then we can eventually work out how the brain works as a whole. You don't know how a car works by looking at the bodywork of the car. You've got to open up the hood and look at all the different components inside the car, like the engine and the petrol and all the different cables and all the different lights and all the different everything within the car. You can't just look at a car and say, okay, now I know, now I understand it. You've got to break it down. And a person is a vehicle, the same thing. You've got to break them down. Not in a bad way.